Men of the Mississippi. Chapter 4. Remember yesterday when we left Minn sleeping in the winter and it was cold and she was down deep and she doesn't breathe for a really long time. So here is Minn in the bottom. And there's a little diagram there of all the things that are down in the muck that Minn might eat when she's done. A snapper's water pie for dinner. So there's the water pie. It says fish 34.2%, carrion, dead stuff 19.6, other vertebrates having backbones 2.2%, water plants 36.2%, invertebrates, things without backbones, such as insects, 7.8. Total pie, 100%. And this is from Dr. Carl F. Langler, The Economic Relationship of Turtles. So Chancey Hollings did a lot of research about turtles. So that's when Minn wakes up, and then she figures out how to get up and finally take her first breath after a really, really long time. Chapter 4. Waters can wander away. Minn slept through the winter, living on the air stored in her strong lungs. Now beneath mud and water, she felt new spring warmth. Like a sleepwalker, she dug her way out, floated to the surface, and breathed again. But floods hurled dazed Minn through the marsh and into the Mississippi. It was a week before she found a quiet new swamp. The fruit from her food sack, together with a few beetles and grubs, had carried her through winter hibernation. Now she was thin, weak, and hungry. Many a wiggling thing was snapped up to make Minn bigger. Some of her hunting was done by ambush. Under mud, unseen, her jaws snapped when food came near, and an unlucky snake or worm promptly vanished. Sometimes she hunted by walking along the swamp bottom. Several kinds of turtles are bottom walkers, though awkward about it. Minn somehow balanced her weight so that enough of it held her down, and her rear end limp did not matter. Slowly she walked through veils of green water like a river spirit seeking forgotten things. Among swirling weeds, Minn was her stately, relentless tread was an ancient monster marching out of the past. 2 inches of relentless monster, a born hunter. Minn's neighbors, the pert little terrapin, bottomed themselves to logs for hours, basking in the sun. Hot, dry sunlight discourages leeches and mossy growths, so the terrapin's shells were neatly smooth. Minn preferred watery shade to sun, and so leeches became her close company, and tiny plants upholstered her shell in green velvet. This mossy coating would be shed each year. As her shell grew, spreading outward, its top layer would peel off like shreds of snapshot film, leaving her smooth and clean. Minn was deaf, yet felt every faint vibration. She was shy, but when she looked upon her world, she saw clearly, and she knew one color from another. She had much common sense. In high water, Minn had settled in a deep pool of the swamp. When floods ran away, the pool shrank to a shallow pond. The day came when Minn's back bulged from a drying puddle, baked in the sun. Terrapin gulped food in or out of water, but Minn, a snapper, could not swallow easily except under water, and there just wasn't enough left. Uh-oh. See what's there? There's a fox. And then there's some cow and beaver dam there. Minn had no intention of starving. She splashed through scum to a baked clay bank and limped away. Minn on land was different from Minn in the water. In a swamp, she lived calmly, snapping mainly to capture food. Here, her sensitive eyes disliked bright sun, and she felt mean enough to snap at anything. A porcupine met her, and she hissed like a viper. The big bristling rodent backed up as she tottered past. When a fox put down an inquisitive nose, Minn lunged at it, and her shell was less than 3 inches, but her neck and tail were so long that almost 8 inches of angry reptile snaked forward to that strike. Though she missed and fell on her chin, the fox was impressed, and when Minn arose again, an armored warrior advancing, the fox switched his plume of a tail from the brush that held it, and thoughtfully trod off into thick ferns. After all, he'd eaten well this morning. Minn's waddling took her further away from the Mississippi. In a bubbling brook she ate happily, bottom walking upstream. But again, Minn's water world deserted her. One day the brook stopped flowing, it gurgled and ran away, while crows fell out of the sky to feast on flopping minnows and tadpoles in the mud. Minn scrambled to safety under draggled grass at the bank. She was confused. First, part of the wide swamp had shrunk to a puddle. Now a running brook had wandered away. Minn stared blankly about her. There seeming to get an idea, she started to walk. The gurgling brook had gasped and then had run away downhill, yet Minn walked up to a ridge of dead trees, sod and mud, making a dam and a pond. Boys who had built the dam and the brook called this place an old swimming hole. Their fathers just could not understand how a brook choked with boulders, poles, and clay produced better swimming than clean lakes and beaches of their summer resort land. The boys could not explain it either, except that, well, how could you feel like a long lake belonged to you, while a dam built with your own hands? They made a swimming hole to be proud of, even if cows did think they owned the whole thing. Now dried out, Minn looked over. She owned the swimming hole. She found the pool to her liking exactly. But startled boys glimpsed a something now here and there and raced for help. Fathers and sisters came to a fight. The monster. Is the 3-inch turtle a monster? Well, snapping turtles are pretty mean, and Grandpa does not like finding one in our lagoon. And he will take it and get rid of it. To fight this monster, a father opened part of the dam. For the third time, Minn was being deserted by running water. "Look," piped a short boy, "I got him! Look here, in my dip net, a 3-legged turtle!" "Ha," said the girl, "a monster, just somebody's pet mud turtle. See, it has letters. Here, let me take it." "No," cried a man, "it's a female snapper. Even small ones can bite. Painted letters have peeled off with her growing carapace." "Carapace," grunted another father. "Of course you know turtles, but what fancy doodad is a turtle's carapace?" "Well, it's the top shell. The bottom shell is a plastron. They join at the 2 bridges. Divisions here are shields. Hand me that empty bottle." The man who knew whittled a plug for the bottle and balanced Minn upon it. Unable to touch anything, she swam furiously in the air. At last she stopped, relaxed, and stared around foolishly. "There," cried the boy. "I said the head looked like a snake." "Yep, this is one that gives the scientific name a serpent turtle. Not enough to excuse you fellows in calling it a monster. Nature holds so many marvels, you don't have to stretch things. Someone said, let's paint her red, white, and blue all over. No, that could re-letter her name, if I knew it, but all over paint would keep her carapace and plaster from growing. Her body would grow inside, squeezing her lungs, crushing her into death slowly. Nobody thought of that. Send her down the Mississippi." And so that weekend they all piled into cars, made a picnic of sending Minn down the river, but a boy said, "It's so silly, just for a dumb turtle." "Yes," said the man who knew, "turtles do seem foolish, but they have kept alive on this jumpy planet for a long, long time. At least seem 175 million years. Or at least from the time God created the earth. We turtles saw the great dinosaurs come and go, and what are you who call yourselves humans? You haven't even learned the simple rule, kill only for real need. You're a new experiment. My children's children will see how the experiment turns out years from now." Chapter 4. Minn of the Mississippi. So she started on the Mississippi, went to a lake, went to a beaver dam, went to a dam the boys made, and now they're carrying her back to the Mississippi. We'll see what happens tomorrow.